Well, even though there isn't much going on with the Golden State Warriors, there's plenty happening with the NBA playoffs, and Draymond Green is keeping us entertained. And I've got a legend, one of the greatest to ever do it, to lace it up, to dribble a basketball, Rick Barry, one of the greatest Warriors ever, one of the greatest NBA players ever. We're talking basketball next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. You don't have to spend $20 to hear Rick Barry's insights or to follow him on social media. The handle is the same regardless of the platform, at Rick24Barry. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a top 50 all-time player according to the NBA. I say top 25. And he's an all-around, incredibly genuine, good dude. Rick Barry, how are you doing, sir? Great to see you. And I don't know if you saw Draymond Green's comments, but we were having a discussion before we started recording about how scary AI, artificial intelligence, is because of a clip of Kevin Durant and a few others that were completely made up that look way too real. Scary stuff. I don't know if you want to touch on that. But Rick, great to see you, sir. How the hell are you doing?
Feeling great, but I'm just glad you brought that up because it makes you feel a lot better. I mean, oh my God. I mean, that was such a diss on his teammates. If that's something of that nature. Wow.
And you're referring to this clip that's been going around. I'm on Threads. You can follow me there at Dog Wild, and I posted that clip in jest. I did make it very clear in the caption below it that it was fake. But again, if you don't read the captions or if you just see that clip without reading anything, you're right. It looks real. It's frightening. I have concerns about AI in general. Do you want to touch on that real fast before we talk basketball? Do you have any thoughts on AI?
Well, I think AI is going to change the way that we live. But again, there's always the negative, something that can be very positive. And it's the same thing with people who have great technological capabilities and skills use it in a negative way and in a legal way. It'd be nice if people who had that kind of brain capacity and that type of knowledge would use it in a productive manner instead of something like the bullshit that we just saw there with him. I mean, it really is very disappointing because there's so much good that's going to be done. They're going to find cures for diseases and get drugs so much faster than they could before. I mean, there's so many wonderful things that are going to happen with AI. But then again, there's always, the other side of the coin. And there's going to be some stuff like that, which I hadn't read all that stuff. I'm glad you brought it up. I said, oh, my God, I can't believe he said that. Although I do think that somewhere down the road, he's going to say, I wish I had never left Golden State because it hasn't worked out too well for him since he left the Warriors. Hell, he could have been a part of some more championship teams if he had stayed here. Golly, that's the disappointing thing for me. Just like I always said it before that, Kobe and Shaq, and unfortunately Kobe's no longer with us, which is such a tragedy, that those guys would down later in life and say, what the hell were we thinking? I mean, you had something so incredibly special. Folks, I don't know if you understand, if you haven't played at the highest level possible or performed at the highest level possible in life, if you've done anything at all at the highest level possible, you have to understand how incredible that is to accomplish that. And to have a chance to do something that has very rarely been done. Mm-hmm. And foolishness. Why? I mean, my God. I mean, like I said, I would definitely do what some other players do. Give up part of my freaking salary to make sure we kept our team together so we can keep winning. How much money do you freaking need?
Absolutely. And while we're on the Kevin Durant subject, there are some people out there, and it's purely conjecture. There's no validity to this, to what is speculation, but people love talking about the Warriors and what they should do this offseason. Kevin Durant's name has come up as a possible reunion. I personally would not trade Jonathan Kuminga for him because I feel, and I'm guessing that will be the price you'd have to pay to get someone like Durant back, simply because I don't think even with Durant at this stage of his career and the Warriors core at the stage of the career they're in, I don't think that's enough to win a title. I mean, look at Denver, look at Minnesota. That's the benchmark you're aiming for. Do you feel differently? Do you agree? What do you think about Kevin Durant to the Warriors, and would it be worth the cost of a player like Jonathan Kuminga?
I don't think it's worth it for the future. I mean,
I agree.
Rebuilding a little bit, and they have some young players who have some really nice potential. How good they're going to become, who knows? I mean, that's always an unknown entity. No, I wouldn't necessarily do that. We've got three of the key elements of that team, the triumvirate. I mean, they're at the end of their careers. Okay, they're at the end of their careers. So to be able to have them there and put some other pieces together with them and try to find another way to get another championship would be great. And then within the next two seasons, if they can find a way to pull it together, next year is really the big chance I think they have to do that. And they just need to be really very precise, laser focused on what do we need to have and analyze that and try to come up with the pieces that are necessary to give this team another shot. And even then, if you do it 100% correctly, you make the absolute correct choices of players to bring in, there's still the unknown injuries and other things that you have no control over. So yeah, I'm with you on that one, Cyrus. I don't think that it's worth going that route. And let's see what they come up with. I'm going to be looking forward to seeing the decisions that are made by Mike Jr. and the rest of the people there. Whoever's going to put their input in there. I don't know how much input Joe Lacob's going to have, or Peter Guber, or whoever else they're going to look to. But there's some major decisions that have to be made because this team does have another shot, but it's got to be next season.
You're absolutely right. And I'm guessing Dale Harris's kid, Larry Harris, I believe he's the assistant GM. He's going to be involved in that as well. But you're right. Huge offseason for Mike Dunleavy Jr. and this Warriors team. Draymond Green's been in the media. I talked about him a little bit on the last show, but I'd love to get your insights on a couple things he said. First of all, I don't know if you've been watching him on Inside the NBA. He's been filling in the last two nights. And last night, he did not hold back at all on his disdain for Rudy Gobert. We all remember the infamous headlock, and which led to Draymond's extended suspension and time away while he was getting who knows what happened, whether he was getting therapeutic help or whether he just had some time. We don't really know what the details of that, but there's no secret that Draymond and Rudy Gobert don't get along. And I went out on a limb, maybe it's a limb, I don't know, but I think Rudy Gobert is the most, and maybe you'll call me outlandish for saying this, I think he is the most overrated player in NBA history, considering how much money he's paid, the price it cost Minnesota to trade for him, and most importantly, 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards that he's won. 2 of those I feel like he robbed from Draymond Green directly. I'm talking about the 2018-2019 awards. The fact that Draymond has 1, Rudy Gobert has 4 is absurd. And we're seeing Rudy Gobert right now in this Nuggets series getting exposed by Nikola Jokic. He can't defend him. It's no contest. This is a first-round knockout. So those are my thoughts on it. Draymond is echoing similar sentiments. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, who can stop the Joker? I mean, I love the Joker. I told you, he's one of my favorite players ever. And it's very rarely that I really like a lot of the things that Kendrick Perkins says. But Kendrick Perkins is absolutely right. I would have to agree with him that there has never been a more skilled big man all around, all the different things that you can do in the game of basketball than the Joker. I mean, Bill Walton, unbelievable passer, rebounder, things he can score, shoot the ball, or whatever, but not the three-point shot. Not the type of things that the Joker does. Didn't have the size and the body with the right hand, left hand inside. The guy's incredible. He made a play. In fact, I was watching because I get, I love YouTube TV, and because I can go and get the key plays and watch stuff and I have to spend forever watching games. And so the play that he made in the game last night, when he got a rebound and had such incredible court vision and recognition, he caught the rebound and threw a length of the court pass right.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my God. I said, wow. I mean, this guy is so impressive with the things that he does. I just love watching this guy. But he is one of those players that you put in the rarefied air of he is worth the price of admission to watch him play.
Yes,
That's
sir.
Special.
Yes, sir. 100% agree with you. Well, and speaking of this Nuggets Timberwolves series, I think this is the NBA Finals preview. Minnesota takes the first two. Denver's now won 3 straight. What has changed, in your opinion, in this series? I mean, Minnesota looked like they had this under control, and then Denver just showed us a whole new gear. What are your thoughts on the series so far with Denver leading 3-2?
I don't think Denver took them as seriously as they needed to. It's a mental. It's the focus and understanding what you need to do. It was a great wake-up call for them. A probably very scary one for the entire Denver organization, from the owner to the general manager to the coach. I mean, how often do you ever see a team blow 2 games at home to start a 7-game playoff series and then come back and take total control of the series and look dominant in doing so? Very impressive about the team. That's the one thing about that team that I say, that they have an innate ability to get back into games even when they struggle for a while. The game is never really over with them. They're explosive as could be. They can get out and run. They have a lot of weapons. And think about this. Porter Jr. didn't even have a good game.
Incredible. You're absolutely right.
He can get you 20, 25 points a game, and he has a mediocre, in fact, actually an inferior game for him offensively. And look at what they did. I mean, they're a well-oiled machine. They're really fun to watch. And but yeah, that was a great wake-up call. The thing that's been really crazy to me is how competitive the Pacers-Knicks series was, and then all of a sudden it's turned into blowout time.
Yeah, well, I want to pick your brain on that in just a moment after we pay some bills, because Draymond Green, speaking of his comments, he said the New York Knicks are a fluke, and that raised a lot of eyebrows. It riled up the Knicks fan base. I'd love to get your thoughts on that and that series and so much more. We'll talk Warriors as well. And I think the Nuggets Timberwolves series bears great relevance to the Warriors, because if you want to turn this ship around, that is who you're aiming for in terms of who you got to beat, are those two organizations. And so whatever the Warriors do this offseason, that is your target. You have a goal. You're aiming for something. So we'll talk about that and so much more after we give some love to our sponsors today. First up on the agenda is a fantastic resource. Rick, you gave a tremendous testimonial to this organization I believe the last time you were on the show, and we're talking about BetterHelp, a fantastic resource for anyone just struggling with mental health, struggling with anxiety, whatever the issue is. You can get help straight from home. It's that easy. Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA and get on your way to being your best self. And Rick, as you mentioned, again, there's still, sadly, in my opinion, a stigma that correlates with mental health and seeking help for it. I think that's absurd. I detest that. But given that reality, it does dissuade a lot of people sometimes from seeking help. And with BetterHelp, you can do it from the comfort of your home. We're mired in insane costs across the board, gas prices included. You don't have to waste money on gas to seek help with BetterHelp. You can do it right from home. So don't worry about the time you're wasting to drive, the money you're wasting for gas. You could also cycle through therapists until you find one that you feel is the right fit for you. So get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure you follow Rick Barry. He's considered one of the greatest to ever lace him up and play this game. Technically a top 50 player. I argue you're top 25, if not higher, but follow Rick on all social media platforms at Rick24Barry. Again, Rick24Barry. Rick, what are your thoughts on Draymond Green's comments where he said the Knicks this season are a fluke? He alluded to the Atlanta Hawks a few years ago when they made the Eastern Conference Finals. You alluded to the Portland Trailblazers in 2019 that the Warriors swept in the Western Conference Finals as being examples of flukes that he sees the Knicks being similar to. Jalen Brunson is putting up absurd numbers. That team is thin. Great series. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I don't think necessarily a fluke. I mean, you don't get there if you're not performing and scoring points and outscoring the opposition and playing some kind of defense. And Brunson, the big thing about them is that it's so much Brunson. I mean, he's got the ball and dominates it. I mean, it's almost like watching the old Houston Rockets when they were just playing that kind of thing and Harden was doing all of that stuff. It's kind of crazy in a way. And he's brought them a long way. And like you say, they're shorthanded. Some of the players were hurt. They missed out and haven't played most of the season. But give them credit for what they've accomplished. I mean, they've really accomplished quite a bit in doing it. But as I say, that series has been bizarre to me, the way it was so closely contested. And all of a sudden, it's a blowout. I mean, I don't know what to say. That's why I tell people, always expect the unexpected when it comes to sports, especially in the NBA. So many crazy things happen. And so I think Draymond exaggerated a little bit. I mean, a fluke is not a fluke. I mean, you don't get there if you're not any good. I mean, you just don't. But here's my observation in watching those teams play in this series. They're just not as good as Minnesota or Denver or Boston. I mean, they really aren't.
Agreed.
I mean, if either of those teams goes on to the next round and is able to get through the next round, they just don't seem to be the well-rounded team and have the kind of firepower that these other teams have. The other teams, I mean, especially Denver after the first two games, the way they responded, these guys should be so proud of themselves. I'm sure coaches, Malone's got to be so happy with his guys, how they responded. These guys embarrassed themselves. I mean, the defending champions embarrassed themselves in those first two basketball games, especially the second one. And to go out and do what they did on the road so convincingly, and then to come home and take care of business again in a highly closely contested game for a good portion of it. But they just did what they needed to do, and they've got the guy, they've got the MVP. This is a great, great basketball player, and he has carried and shouldered the responsibility and the burden, and he's carrying these guys to, I think, the next round. I will be very surprised if they don't win this next game against Minnesota. Now, that doesn't mean that Minnesota can't win the game at home. They're supposed to win that game at home, and then Denver's got to come through and win at home. But that means to win the series, they're going to have to beat the defending champions 3 out of 4 games on their home court. I mean, I don't know if that's ever been done in the history of the NBA. So the odds are probably stacked against them to have that happen. I want to get back to something else because I didn't answer what you had talked about before was the Rudy Gobert situation. Boy, I'll tell you one thing. Perkins and Stephen A. were all over him. I mean, all over this guy. And so even to Perkins' credit, he said, I'm just wondering whether I should have voted for this guy for the Defensive Player of the Year. And the point they bring up, but here's the other point there. And, the other talking head that they have on the show, who I've gotten into some arguments with him about it, I'm not even going to mention his name. He did say probably the most profound thing of the program during that time. He said, look, a great player in the NBA, this is mainly guys that are great players who are scorers and shooters and scorers who are scorers, not the shooter. You can lock down. We had talked this before. You can lock down a shooter. Can't lock down a scorer. But the great scorers in the NBA, I don't give a hell who's guarding him. Nobody's going to lock him down. He's going to abuse anybody. And so who stops the Joker? Hardly anybody ever stops the Joker. The only way the Joker gets stopped is if he does it himself and if the other team happens to play ridiculous basketball and he gets no help from his teammates. So, but that was pretty darn good. The Mad Dog talking about that stuff, I guess it was. But there's no way you're going to shut down the Joker. So to take such a strong position against him, I do think that he is not the factor that he needs to be. And, but there's a lot of guys overpaid in the league. I mean, come on, let's think about it. But he's not as physical as you need to be to play against the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
The Joker, you have to have the power and the strength to be able to bang him and hold him because, but here's the thing. He's not just all strength and power.
There's finesse. Yeah.
He has footwork. He's got spin moves, up and unders, and he's so clever. He can shoot with the right hand, with the left hand. That's why he's impossible to guard. He can shoot the mid-range. He can shoot the three-point shot. He can make incredible passes and do things for his teammates. He and Gordon have probably the greatest eye contact and combination of seeing somebody and helping him out. Gordon should be, given a Christmas present every year to the Joker for what he does for him, how many easy baskets he gives him. But they play so well together. Yeah, it's just fun to watch that team play. But Rudy Gobert, without question, I think is not, he's not the guy that's going to do anything to the Joker. It has to be a concerted effort on the part of that team, the way they played the first two games. And what happened is when they came back home, that's what killed them. They came back home and they let Denver dominate them at home.
Mm-hmm.
It destroyed all the momentum that they had. Gave Denver the confidence to realize, hey, we did what we came here, and they were ready in that game. And they came out and they did what they knew they could do. And so their confidence came back, and they know it's important on the road to stay even more focused, and they were able to do that. And then not only do they get it tied up, they come home, and in a close contest that could have been anybody's game late in the second half, Denver did what you have to do as a defending champion. So that's been really kind of fun to watch. I think they were a little bit harsh on Gobert. I mean, come on. The guy got 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, he had to be doing something halfway decent to do that, to get all these people voting for him. Now, is he a bit overrated? Yes. Okay. And as I told you, it's not defense that wins the championship. You got to outscore the opposition. You have to outscore the opposition. And he is not someone that you can rely on to get you the 20 and 10, 20 and 15, and 3, 4, 5 block shots every game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Not
and again, I think that. Sorry, go ahead. What?
Not even close to the Joker.
Yeah, not even close. And I think the overrated thing, again, 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards. It's interesting that the Minnesota took a 2-0 series lead. One of those 2 games, Gobert wasn't even in it because he missed the game due to the birth of his first child. And then when we come back, I'm curious, Rick, there's a lot to touch on, but to finish up on this Gobert subject, there was a player survey conducted recently. Approximately 130, 140 players participated in the survey. And as you can see, one of the questions asked was, who is the league's most overrated player? And Rudy Gobert got 13.6% of the vote in terms of being number 1, the most overrated. And I'm curious to know, I mean, there was a lot of disdain from NBA players, from Gobert's own peers towards him. Like he's not a very popular player. I've never understood the why of that. And I'd love to get your perspective. So that's called the tease, folks. And when we come back, we'll get Rick's answer on that. I'm also curious, Rick, to know what your thoughts are on Giannis to the Warriors. Could just be a fantasy, but if you're Giannis Antetokounmpo, I don't know how you can be happy staying in Milwaukee, unless you're just loyal to your franchise like Steph is to the Warriors. But we'll touch on that and so much more after we give some love to our second and final sponsor of the day. Fantastic resource for finding tickets. Rick, you're in Florida right now. Where you live, are there concerts around you? Are there sporting events around you? Or is it a quiet part of the state? Like what's the scene there for events?
No, they got a bunch of stuff going on not far away. I mean, Orlando's not that far away. Neither is Tampa. Tampa's
there you go.
Oh, and they have all kinds of stuff going on. They've got the hockey team there. That's a heck of a hockey team that they have in, Tampa, and they have concerts all the time there. And the same thing with Orlando. So yeah, there's always a lot of stuff going on.
Absolutely. And so look, especially with summer here, people love going out. They love going to events, whether it's sporting events, concerts, theater. You need tickets though. And especially if you're a spontaneous person, you can get bit in the ass when it comes to your spontaneity, because oftentimes events are sold out. And that's where Gametime is a clutch, vital resource for you, because they have last minute deals. They have last minute inventory. They got flash deals. You can get views from your prospective seat using their app or their website, where you can literally see in crystal clear imagery of how the view is going to look from your seat. And maybe the best part is their low price guarantee. Meaning, let's say you buy a ticket from Gametime, and then you happen to find seats in the same row and section from another broker at a lower price, they will refund the difference. That's literally a low price guarantee. It's awesome. Gametime's the place to go for tickets. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL. or Locked On NBA. I'm going to guess my read here says Locked On NHL. So go ahead and put that in there. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. I'm guessing NBA works also. That might be an error on my copy here. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day for the everydayers. We are on this program almost daily, so follow me on Threads at Dog Wild. Follow the program on Threads at Locked On Warriors, and follow NBA Hall of Famer, one of the greatest to ever do it. His jersey hangs in the rafters of Chase Center. Number 24, retired by the Golden State Warriors, Rick Barry. Always a pleasure, sir, just to engage with you in any format, especially on programs that we host together. Finishing up, why is Rudy Gobert so unpopular? I showed that survey a moment ago. Your thoughts on that? Because it's no secret that he's not very popular. Why is that, in your opinion?
Oh, I don't know him. I mean, only the people who voted for him can answer that question. I mean,
He's just not a very likable dude. I don't know if it's just because he's French. Who knows? But regardless, people don't like him. All right, let's switch gears to Giannis Antetokounmpo. Look, the Milwaukee Bucks, I've covered that team more than maybe I should on this program because they're not the Warriors. But I'm looking at that roster, and outside of Giannis, Dame Lillard turns, I think, 35 next year. Chris Middleton is on the decline physically. He's aging. And then you look at the rest of the roster beyond them, and it's just a bunch of scrubs. If you're Giannis Antetokounmpo, you cannot be looking at that team and that roster and thinking to yourself, there is a future here where I'm winning championships. The Warriors, I've done the research. They would have the best package available in terms of players who can get on the court right now and contribute. Plus, they could throw in 2 future first-round picks to get a Giannis Antetokounmpo. Am I flying on a cloud, Rick, on a fantasy cloud? Is there any tinge of reality to what I'm saying? Your thoughts to Giannis possibly expressing this unhappiness with the Bucks and being traded to the Warriors, or is that just a pipe dream?
no, I didn't think it's possible. It's just a matter of how he feels. It's really predicated on whether or not he wants to stay in Milwaukee and feels that they have enough there to try to win again. But right now, Boston's a better team. Boston's deeper. They have more talent. It's going to be very difficult for them to be able to beat Boston with the roster that they currently have and the roster that the Celtics have. And to come to the Warriors, him joining the Warriors team, it depends on who they're going to have to give up and what's going to happen. There still has to be some other players because it's not – if you're going to give up some of our young guys, you're going to give up. Kuminga is going to be one of the guys that's going to be in there. And, Moody might be another guy they might ask for. I mean, so they're going to be asking for some of their Warriors guys that were drafted for the future. You got to give up some of the future stuff to have him. So do you want to have a chance to win another one next year? Obviously, if he came in, but you still have to have some other people that you bring in. So this is where it comes down to what San Antonio and the Lakers are able to do during their hate time, during the Lakers Showtime era, and during that when it was like every other year, it seemed like San Antonio couldn't win back to back, but it's like every other year they were winning titles back there in the 2010s or whatever. They have to bring in the proper personnel to be able to supplement what they have as far as their star players are concerned. And it'd be critical for the Warriors to have to do that. So they would have to have a master plan. But first of all, you just have to find out, is the guy willing to want to come play that? For him, I would think, he was hoping to get it with Dame. That didn't work out as well as they thought it was. Dame is not the same player as Steph Curry. I mean, as great as he could be at times shooting the ball, but he's not Steph Curry. They don't have, like you say, he's getting a little bit older. He's not the same player he was. And you could say put him in the same category as maybe Clay.
Yeah, right? Fair.
But somebody who's a better three-point shooter than Clay. And then you've got Draymond, the defensive end. I don't know if they have anybody to compare it to that. It would be interesting, but I just don't know. I mean, the only thing is you have to see. If he's not happy, certainly the Warriors could conceivably do that if they had a plan as to who else they would want to go after that's available, some experience and stuff to bring in to be able to give you the bench that you need to have, because you don't win without the bench. That was the biggest concern with the Nuggets this year. Remember when they came back, is they lost a couple of key players. And so maybe we said, well, the Nuggets aren't as deep as they used to be. They still had some good players, but guys have stepped up. And there's a lot of times you just don't know how somebody's going to respond when given the opportunity. I mean, I remember saying to my son, John, all the time, John, even though you're only playing, 14 minutes, 16 minutes, you got to be ready, because you never know when your time's going to come. And one of the times I think Steve Smith got hurt, and then all of a sudden he got thrown in the starting lineup, and he had to start playing 30-something minutes a game. And I don't think he was in the shape he needed to be in. And I don't think he played at the level he was capable of playing. He finally did, but Steve came back. I mean, that would have been a great opportunity there, but that's because you have to always be ready, because you don't know when your number is going to be called and for how long it's going to be called. So that's the responsibility of those players to do that. And I think, if anything, as assistant coaches and on teams, you have to, that's why these workouts they have are great, but you don't work out the guys playing 35 to 40 minutes a game all the time. Get these other guys who are playing your 12, your 14, your 16, 18 minutes a game, and really put those guys through the rigors and get them to do a lot of stuff and have scrimmages and whatever you need to do to get these guys so that they are physically in shape to play 25, 30 minutes or more a game. Because if you're only playing 10, 12, 14, 16 minutes, and all of a sudden you're playing 30, that's a huge difference. Hey, you're in great shape compared to a normal human being, but in condition to play 15 minutes in an NBA game as opposed to 32 minutes in an NBA game is a huge difference.
Wholeheartedly agree. Before we go, Jill Espina in the chat wrote that she still believes the Dubs can stop Jokic, and she's a Nuggets fan on top of that. And that reminded me of 2022, the last time the Warriors won the title. In the first round, Jamal Murray wasn't playing for the Nuggets, so they were shorthanded. But I still maintain that was a masterclass in defense from Draymond Green, because he was primarily the defender on Jokic. Kevon Looney was basically out of the rotation by the end of that series because he had no chance defending Jokic. But that I just think back to that, and that was masterful. Do you have any thoughts on that series? Because when I think back to that, that is just a fun, positive memory.
Yeah, well, Draymond is one of those pesky guys. I mean, he's obviously quicker, a lot shorter, but, you front a guy, you do other things to do him. He's still, got strength, so he can, bang against him, and Joker can shoot over him. Nobody's going to be able to stop him with some of the shots that he had. I mean, some of the shots that he made, I mean, how many guys have you seen? I remember back in the old days when I played, was a guy who was an old pro when I came in named Cliff Hagan, who was a hook shot artist. Did you see that hook shot that he made in the one play, the big high banker with the right hand going?
Incredible. Unstoppable.
Dinosaurs coming back to life to have that kind of a play in a shot, and you don't see it very often. But the Joker pulls out all the stops. I love him. But yeah, Draymond was outstanding in that series, no question about it. But again, they were shorthanded. They weren't the same. Always felt that Denver is the team that gave the Warriors a lot of trouble, even during their great runs. That's a team that always bothered me. And then the Joker has just, elevated his game to a point of almost absurdity. This guy is just, I just can't even express how much I enjoy watching this guy play.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible. It is incredible. And the fact that he turned this ship around for them, starting off the series down 2-0. Yeah. And as Matt Brotherton added, Michael Porter Jr. was not available in that series either, but nonetheless, just fond memories, because that was a masterclass again when it comes to defense. Rick, go ahead. Sorry.
Cleveland, because Cleveland, they had one of their key players wasn't available for him. I mean, it's hard to win a series when one of your key players is out. It's very, very difficult to do. I mean, somebody has to step up big time. It's not easy. It happens occasionally, but I would say more than not, it doesn't happen. And short-handed, I mean, it's certainly it's a detriment to them. Same thing with their point guard, Minnesota. I mean, he had the hamstring or whatever.
The calf. I think it was a calf. Yeah. Mike Conley being out definitely didn't help things. I hope the series goes 7. This to me is the series in the playoffs. It's been something I feel like we'll be talking about for decades. Rick, again, people can follow you on all social media platforms at Rick24Berry. Folks, follow Rick, especially on Instagram. I feel like that's the account that you provide the most insight into your personal life, and you share all your current success as a pickleball champion. Definitely follow Rick on Instagram and all social media platforms at Rick24Barry. Yes, sir.
Let's talk about the Dallas, and that's a good series. It's a very interesting series as well.
Well, if you have time, we could do a quick second episode. Do you want to do that?
What's that? Okay, you were done.
Yeah, we're up on the clock. Yeah, but we could do a second one. Do you want to stick around and just do a second one real fast?
That's okay. I'll just say Dallas. That's an interesting series. I'm waiting to see what happens with that one. That'll be interesting to see how they let one slip away from them.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Rick, I love you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.